Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Inner Estate with your host, Bridget Stewart. Our guest today is mindset performance coach Paul Salter. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Bridget, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
I am too, because you work on mindset performance and you also have a podcast, the Scratch Golfer's Mindset podcast, and you are a coach. So we're really going to be able to have, I think, a very engaging conversation about how people can lead themselves to where they want to go, and the value that we could offer them in making that happen. So one of the things that really caught my attention about the work that you do with your clients as a mindset coach is that you believe in the power of questions. And you have discussed in your podcast how you look at the difference between affirmations and asking yourself questions. Could you go into that in more detail? Tell us what you're on about there.
Absolutely. So let's take a big step back first. What do all of your listeners, you, myself, all want more of that I would often label as the most addictive drug in the world? Confidence, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you can also imagine that there is decades of research on confidence from every angle, neuroscience, behaviorally, psychologically. And what the research shows is that the number one predictor and influencing factor of confidence levels across all industries, ages, and levels of success is your self-talk. And we have to really understand how powerful that is. Every single day, it's estimated we have between 50 and 70,000 thoughts per day. Thoughts are just, the collection of the words we use to speak to and about ourselves. And the challenge then becomes about 80% of the thoughts we have are negative. About 90% of the thoughts we have are the same thoughts we had yesterday. So it's like, oh crap, we're stuck. We're doomed with this negative self-talk. Now, to bring it back to your question here, self-talk, if we take hold of it, if we're consciously committed to being positive, redirecting the propensity to be negative, there's an opportunity to change the way we view the world and ourselves to find more ease in connecting to the positive, seeing the bright side and the opportunities. And that's where you can now invite the topic of affirmations in here, constantly telling yourself, believe I am confident. I believe I am X, Y, and Z. Firm believer there's a time and a place for affirmations. I think they're one of many effective tools.
Yes.
In my experience, two potential downsides or where affirmations come up short. Number one, if, for example, I were to just shout every day, if I felt very low self-esteem, always anxious and fearful, and I tried to yell, I'm confident, I'm confident, I'm confident, well, that's a classic case of toxic positivity. And there's such an incongruency between what I deeply believe and what I'm trying to convince myself I believe that my subconscious will just continue to resist and reject it. And I'll become frustrated, burnt out, and throw in the white towel and say, hell with this.
Right. And these don't work.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Even worse, this doesn't work for me. Like it might work for others, but not for me. Right.
Yeah, I'm the special snowflake. It doesn't work.
Right.
But two then is that when I just say, I am confident, again, if there's uncertainty, that's a challenge. But our brain is very solution driven. It loves to solve problems and engage conversation. So if we instead shift from affirmations to asking, we can then be very intentional in word choice and sentence structure to ask a question that challenges our brain to find the evidence or answers we need to step into the next best version of ourselves. So simple example, I work with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs who, they need to set up sales calls. They need to prospect. They need to go find, negotiate, and close deals. So when it comes to understanding to grow my business, I need X number of calls or deals per month. We're making this very simple here.
Right.
The powerful question is, will I make 10 calls today? And in asking a question versus saying, I will make 10 calls per day, because maybe you will, maybe you won't. There's uncertainty. There's pause there. The question forces you to engage in a conversation. The question is binary. It's yes, no. I don't say, can I go find 10 deals or make 10 calls today? That invites in any opportunity for excuses and shortcuts.
Fairy tales.
The binary yes, no. It's a quick yes. And the will I it empowers ownership. Like, absolutely, I will. And that allows you to take action that aligns with the person you want to be.
I think that's fantastic. And it taps into that we're not just making statements in our own self-talk every day. We're engaged in a conversation with ourselves, with our subconscious. We are directly activating our natural curiosity.
I love that word. Yeah, we have to. We have to. I mean, we always, a lot of entrepreneurs, self included at times, we have this superpower of tenacity, ambition, work ethic, and it serves us so well, but it gets us away from that natural childlike curiosity, and I'm a new father. I've got a 13-month-old at home, and just watching how curious he is. Thank you. Yeah. He's playful. He's curious. Like, when we start to lose that in our own life, our niche, our industry, that's when we start to teeter with burnout, lack of fulfillment, direction, anxiety, uncertainty, and you know how that story goes, and so on and so forth. So the curiosity, I love that you use that word. It's so crucial.
What if someone in that example that you gave asks themselves in the morning, will I talk to 10 people today? And what if the answer is no?
Yeah.
Where do you take that?
So it's a great opportunity for curiosity. And I always come back to this with my clients, how can we view a situation through a lens of non-judgmental curiosity? Okay, the answer is no. Why? Why? I'm not going to make the 10 calls because I don't feel prepared. I'm not going to speak to 10 people because I don't know where to start. I'm afraid I will fail. I'm afraid I'll embarrass myself. What if I talk to 10 people and I close 10 deals? Holy shit, now I stand out. Next level success. So by invoking curiosity through reflection, you can get to some truth that allows you to take the effective action steps if you're willing to be honest and vulnerable.
Yes, I agree with you on that. And at times, not very often, sometimes there's a valid reason. And you can decide as a business person and a leader of yourself to make a variance for that day. I think what's important, though, if you're being honest with yourself, when you make a variance, then you must reschedule or figure out where you're going to put that work that you are deciding to not do that day.
Don't miss twice. You can make the authoritative decision, I'm not going to do X because of Y, and you can be at peace with that decision. Remember, you're the only person who lives with the consequences of your choices and actions. If you're at peace with it, great.
Right.
But simultaneously, if you're committed to your goals and you've determined this is a crucial action step, like you said, you better reschedule or not miss tomorrow.
Yeah. It's for a long time, from 2008 till just last year, I was with the real estate company Keller Williams. And Gary Keller used to always say, if you erase, you must replace, which most of us would say in a Johnny Cochran style of impersonation. I just aged myself. A lot of people would be like, what does that even mean? And then it gets back to, again, being honest with yourself because, and I'm sure you've had clients that have struggled with this. Maybe you have faced this in your own self. I know I have at different times. We have to live with ourselves every day. And most of us are attempting to lead ourselves with care and candor in our own life and not being viciously self-critical. So sometimes it doesn't happen. And you were thinking that you made a business decision and a variance. If that happens too many times in a row and you're still letting yourself get away with it, what do you recommend in that instance?
Yeah, first we got to call it like it is. It's self-sabotage.
Yes.
And I always like to make this subtle yet significant, categorization of two types of sabotage. There's this capital S, big obvious sabotage. That's the gambling, it's the addiction, it's the infidelity, it's making these huge promises and not doing a single thing, leaving others out to dry. Where then there's the lowercase, a little less sabotage, which is, for example, hitting the snooze button a few times, skipping a workout, a meditation, not making calls today, not sending that follow-up email in a timely manner, where independently on their own as a one-off, no big deal. Yet when they accumulate, like you're mentioning, they add up to pack a powerful punch of sabotage. So first, sometimes the big step, Bridget, is getting the person to recognize, like, oh crap, like I am sabotaging myself. I'm making excuses and justifications. And what we often find under that is a fear fear of success, failure, embarrassment, judgment, standing out. And even further underneath that typically is a belief, I'm not deserving, I'm not worthy, I'm not capable, I'm not good enough. And again, through non-judgmental curiosity, for those of you listening, these are reflection questions you can ask yourself. We can get to the core of what's really the reason behind you shortcutting your way through these action steps. And then it's an opportunity to do the work to correct it.
Would you say that's the most impactful type of work that you do in your coaching?
Is going back to identify the fear and beliefs?
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, a belief is nothing more than a filter. It's the lens through which you see the world. It's the filter of your decision making and your action taking. The only challenge with that is scientists, researchers estimate about 95% of our beliefs are formed by the age of 7. So unfortunately, you didn't choose your beliefs, yet you're the only person who can do anything about it. You are filled with all of these beliefs. I like to say there's 4 core beliefs. Beliefs you have about yourself, about others, about life, and then I add the 4th one, belief around money. All of those 4 respective beliefs were embedded to you by your parents, your upbringing, your environment, and your sources of entertainment from a young age. So we've got to get to the crux of what you truly believe about X, Y, and Z. And if it's not working for you, we've got to take action to unlearn it and upgrade it.
What do you recommend in that area? So let's say you have identified these limiting beliefs or fears and uncovered, the origin or the core. And I understand it's complex, but what is a first step someone could take in creating change?
Yeah. So you'd be surprised. It's simpler, and I'm going to do my best to articulate it as simplistically as possible, with the caveat simple is not easy. Let me be very clear on that. Also, the other caveat is I'm biased. I am a credentialed hypnotherapist, so I use hypnosis to help my clients. And the way that I frame it is, all these beliefs that we're talking about, fears, any sabotaging behaviors, procrastination, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, or some of the common ones people experience, they're all learned, which means they can be unlearned. Yeah. So for me, hypnosis is my primary modality because it allows us to uncover and get to the source, the origin of when did you learn to be anxious? When did you learn you weren't enough? You don't deserve love. You don't deserve $1 million. And when we can get to the source, we can then do the work necessary to unlearn the beliefs and behaviors that were formed at that moment. Take that energy, because everything in life is energy, like literally the derivative of the word emotion, energy in motion. So we unlearn, we take that energy. Now we can use that boundless amount of energy to build the new beliefs, the new behaviors you need to ascend into the next best version of yourself.
I think that's really exciting. When you're using the hypnosis, is that something you do after you've uncovered the core issues? How does that work into your coaching with your clients?
That's a really good question. I don't think anyone's asked me that before. I love that. So typically, let me take a big step back, give some clarity and education around hypnosis, because I know some of you listening right now are imagining me with a pocket watch. You remember that guy on the cruise ship or your high school comedy show. That is not the hypnosis that I do.
You're not going to make me cluck like a chicken now?
I mean, Bridget, if you want me to, I can. Be careful. No. So first thing gotta be really clear on is hypnosis is not magic. It's not brainwashing. It's not mind control. It is a natural state of mind. Every single one of you listening, Bridget and myself, have been in hypnosis multiple times today already. It is characterized by a state in which your brain is producing certain brainwaves, theta brainwaves. It's a state of deep relaxation. It's the same state of mind you're in the first moment you transition from sleeping to waking, when you're caught up in a good book, when you're binging Bridget's podcast, you're in that flow state, or you're deeply immersed in a project you love at work. So first some familiarity. Oh yeah, it's not this novel weird thing. The big 2 benefits that occur when we intentionally get into this hypnotic state is, number 1, you alluded to it earlier, Bridget, as high performers, we've got this harsh inner critic and judgmental voice at times that can get really loud. Well, in hypnosis, silence that. We sidestep that noise and negativity. And then number 2, we connect directly with your subconscious mind, which not only influences 95% of what you do every day, It's also home to your memories, emotions, beliefs, values, and habits. So like I alluded to, I'll use hypnosis to uncover the when, why, and how you learned performance anxiety, perfectionism, procrastination, fear of success, so we can unlearn it. And then to now bring this full circle directly to your question is, let's say you're coming to me, Paul, I am just struggling with, public speaking. I lose my confidence. I get anxious. I stumble over my words and I practice, but there's just something about being in front of a live audience where I crumble. So you're presenting with the sign. There's anxiety. We can do some conversation and begin to understand, well, I'm fearful I'll make a mistake. I'll be judged. I'll be embarrassed. And maybe even deeper, you have the awareness because you've done such great work on yourself. Maybe it's really like, crap, what if I crush this presentation and then other people want me to speak live and then I make more money? I have a bigger impact. That's just such a massive identity upgrade. It feels scary.
Right.
So we can get to a lot of that through conscious level conversation. But when we shift into the hypnosis, we can begin to also go deeper to understand what's the belief around success you currently have. Success is if it's scary. If I'm successful, one that I personally dealt with and a lot of my clients too, that I can't have success in my business and success in my marriage. It's got to be one or the other. So we start to uncover all of these crazy irrational beliefs. And I say that because our subconscious is like a 5-year-old. It's irrational. It's emotional. It doesn't make sense to our logical mind. So in hypnosis, we can get to the core of when you learned that belief, who helped teach it to you, what do you believe you're worthy, deserving, and good enough? And then we can ripple all of that forward to help you break free and show up poised, composed, clear, and confident on the stage.
I think that's fantastic. Is there any area where you feel this would not help have a breakthrough?
I have not come across one because
Okay.
think about it like this. We're all the same in that we all have beliefs about ourselves, others, life, money. We all then have an accompanying set of ways we speak to and about ourselves, which influences our thoughts, our behavior. All of that shapes our results and our identity. So in a way, we're all wired the same. We're all wired to survive, not to thrive. But you, me, and everyone listening wants to thrive. We just have different challenges based on our experiences to this date in life, but there's still a very similar framework or blueprint for all of them.
And the thing that's remarkable is how the similar manner in which our brains typically work. Yeah. So that gives you a lot of ability to meet your client where they are, figure out, dig deep and figure out what's going on, and then allow them to create change for themselves and within themselves. It's really, I find that as a coach, that is one of the most satisfying parts of what we do in our coaching careers.
For those of you listening, that's how you know Bridget is a fantastic coach, because what she said is so brilliant. It's that she empowers her clients to come to the answer, to take ownership of that change. And I'm sure you agree, Bridget. Like, I know the answer. I see the end destination way before my clients do, but it means nothing if I tell them the answer, just like you shared so brilliantly. When you help them, when you empower them to problem solve and get there on their own, that's not only what creates significant results, it's lasting change, which is, like you said, so fulfilling.
It really is. It really is. So, Paul, I am going to jump subject slightly. The name of your podcast is the Scratch Golfer Mindset. So we haven't even mentioned the word golf in this whole conversation. Could you share with everyone, how does golf play into what you do as a coach and in your current career?
Yes. So the backstory that's helpful in answering the question, I've been coaching for 17 years. A lot of my coaching early on was a sports dietitian, which evolved into specifically helping those stuck in the yo-yo dieting cycle achieve significant sustainable weight loss from the inside out. I can fill every knowledge gap around food and nutrition, but if you don't have the mindset, the emotional maturity and intelligence, you're going to continue to remain stuck in those patterns. So I podcasted for a while in that niche, and as my coaching evolved and I got more into just the mindset and performance work, I started to work with a lot of golfers just through word of mouth referrals. And it really dawned on me as I began to play golf again after about a 16-year hiatus that golf, just like entrepreneurship, is nothing but a mirror of our own personal development journey. And what I mean by that is if I experience performance anxiety on the first tee of a golf course because I care what other people think, I don't like all eyeballs on me, that's not the only place in my life I experience
Right.
that. It shows up professionally. It shows up personally. So candidly, a little bit of the podcast came from my work with a lot of golfers, not all professionals, entrepreneurs, business owners who love to golf as well. Because really, I tell my audience all the time, my podcast is a personal development podcast disguised as a golf mindset podcast.
Right.
Golf is that low hanging fruit of connection where I can share examples that give people the dot connecting moments. This is how it applies off the course, which helps them have their own breakthroughs.
I think that's great. And you are still playing yourself now as well?
I am, yeah. Coming up on about 2 years since I picked the clubs back up again. Thank goodness.
And I want to make sure everyone heard that. So you didn't play for about 16 years and decided, hey, you know what? That's something I did that I loved, that I
Yep.
want to do. And you didn't, I don't know your process, but you're playing again, right? So you allowed yourself to reclaim that and work it back into your life. Rather than, I'll give you an example. I'm thinking of a friend right now who shall remain nameless, hasn't been skiing in forever and feels like because they didn't do it, now they can't. That's not true. If there's something out there you're dying to do, go and do it. And you're really enjoying golfing again.
Absolutely. And for me, candidly, I was the guy who worked 75 hours a week, mainly loving what I do, but I had no form or know-how of how to reset, rest, recharge, play, if you will. And the universe taught me the hard way many times over and over that if you don't learn how to slow down and play, you're going to constantly remain stuck in these patterns of burnout. So golf for me it's an expression and an opportunity for self-actualization and personal development. It's also 4 or 5 hours at a time where I can completely shut off my brain from work and anything else going on, which helps me return reinvigorated and energized to do an even better job.
It's a pressure release valve. So when
Yeah.
you golf, at least every other week and hit the driving range every week, or, if you do that, and by the way, fill in the blank with another sport or dance or creative outlet, whatever it is, being outdoors, you're releasing the pressure that was building
Mhm.
up. And like you said, you're able to come back and be re-energized and play your game at a higher level when you're at work by
Yeah.
having that break.
What's interesting is I had my mentor as a guest on my podcast, and he's a mindset and performance coach. He's a credentialed hypnotherapist. I did so much training under him. He works with 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs, the top men and women in their industry. And I asked him a question along these lines, about avoiding burnout and just detaching our self-worth around results. And the answer he gave me completely surprised me. He says he encourages his clients to find a hobby that is completely separate from whatever their 9 to 5 is their job is, because it allows them to detach. It's that pressure valve, like you mentioned. And what he said too, as an element of specificity, was to make sure it's a hobby where you can see and track meaningful progress, because we all know the pursuit of progress, the perception of progress, it's intoxicating. It keeps giving us hit of dopamine after hit after dopamine, and that feels really good. And then we bring that feel good back into our industry, our job, our expertise, and we shine even brighter there.
Well, I agree with that approach. I'm glad he shared that with you. I believe in the same thing. So if you are hardcore doing sales, have a creative outlet or a physical outlet. Yeah, or if you're a manager or an HR, just make sure that you have some counterbalance with a hobby that allows you to use an entirely different part of your mind and natural skills. Or if maybe you're not skilled, but you love it, right? Still do it.
Yeah.
If you like throwing pottery, is that what it's called? And
Sounds
they're
right.
all hideous. Doesn't matter if you love it, do it, right?
Yeah. What do you do to reset and recharge to capitalize on this?
I paint. So one of my paintings is right back there. I also paint
Amazing.
pottery, but I don't throw it. Maybe that's something I need to try this year. I also golf. And I love traveling. I love being off grid. So in September, I climbed Mount Whitney for the second time.
Cool.
Did it this time by myself. I spent 4 nights on the mountain. So I do a lot of, I don't think it's extreme. Some of my friends think, that I did 5-day whitewater rafting. So I like to connect with nature and travel. I only have 2 continents left. I only have 1 state left, so I have quests in that regard, and I'm reading and writing. So I believe in the power of either reclaiming something like you haven't golfed in 16 years, golfing again, or many of us have dreams that we had when we were young that we never were able to, pursue. I know some of them physically, there's limitations as you get older, but one that I was always fascinated with is fencing.
Oh,
And I was thinking this year, and I've already started looking at what's available in the Scottsdale area, but I think I'm going to find an adult beginner fencing and at
love
least
that.
check it out because you know probably more in this arena than I do. When you challenge yourself to just learn something new and step into a dream that you've held on to for decades and see if you like it or not, detach from the outcome. Maybe I won't like it. Maybe I'll go for 6 sessions and be like, oh, yeah. But then at least I'll know I gave it a go. I think
Yeah.
that is beneficial for us at any age, particularly though as we get older. I think there's power in
Totally
that.
agree. Side note, I did an internship at UNC Chapel Hill many, many years ago, and I got to work with some of the collegiate fencers there. I didn't even know
Oh,
fencing was a college sport, but it was, and I got to learn. But yeah, it was fascinating to me. So I love that. Definitely pursue that.
I'm going to
Well,
keep everyone updated. If I do it, I'll share.
there's
Yeah,
her
so
accountability. You heard her.
or actually when I do it, I will share because I did decide I'm going to investigate that. And am I good at everything? No. Do I love it all? Sure. So it's a way of keeping myself present. As you mentioned, when I go off grid for 5 days by myself in nature, I'm way better of a coach when I come back. Like everyone benefits when you do things like that. I believe there's a ripple effect that occurs. Your son benefits when you golf regularly.
And that's a challenging one. I'm glad you brought that up because what's coming up for me as I'm listening to you is there's this whole notion of it's selfish to put myself first, to put my needs first. And it's actually incredibly selfless, just like you're mentioning, because, there's the cliche, you can't pour from an empty cup. But
Right.
it's so true as an entrepreneur and business owner, someone who's wired to go, 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 do, do, do. If you don't pause to recalibrate by pouring into your own cup to recharge, you come home, you're tense, you're anxious, you're easily irritated and agitated. Your significant other, your children don't get anywhere close to the best version of you. And like we've kind of thrown the word around this conversation, there's burnout, there's overwhelm, and everybody gets the negative benefit of that ripple effect. When you do you and you learn to see pouring into yourself as a selfless gift to those closest to you, similarly, everybody around you benefits and gets lifted up as well.
It's absolutely true. And so keep that in
Yeah.
mind if that is something, if any listener out there feels as if they are being selfish, just know that you're having that ripple effect. And anyone around you is going to appreciate you taking care of yourself.
I have a side point to add that is related. I didn't know we were going to go there today, but we're going to. Is, I work with a lot of men and women who logically they understand what we're saying. Yet the friction then comes in the conversation with the significant other because they're already working more than a 9 to 5 and I have to go to the gym or I have to sauna, I have to meditate, I have to golf. It just seems like whether maybe they're out of the house too long, they're just always going and doing it takes away from family time. So it's how do I even bring up the conversation around like, hey, I need this. And I think it's really important for everyone listening who feels maybe they can relate to that challenge. They're struggling. It's all in how you frame the conversation. And it's having a candid, open conversation, creating the safe space for you and your significant other, for you to be honest and share, like, I've been feeling anxious, overwhelmed, down, exhausted, blah, blah, blah. I believe why will help me feel, list all positive out traits, and that will benefit all of us because you have to make it a group win, a team win, not just about me, me, me. And when you do
Right.
that, your significant other is far more likely, this is not a guarantee or a promise, be very aware of that, but far more likely to be open into hearing that. And you have to then put the ball back and flip it too. Like, what do you need? Again, when you can
That's
really
right.
approach these as a team, everybody wins.
I agree. And you hit the nail on the head when you see yourself, because again, we're talking predominantly about people who are leaders, right? So when you're a leader, you show up as a leader in most places. So a strong leader is going to make sure that whomever their significant other or child or whomever is relying on them in a regular manner, they're also going to want to make sure that they check in with them on, and what are you doing and what would you need? And obviously think it through and think of more engaging questions for them so they'll feel comfortable and they'll share with you.
Yes.
But I think that would help people go, a long way. A funny thing is you and I are talking, and we are talking about people that are around other people. Newsflash, if you live by yourself, you have to convince yourself, and you have to still, convince, and I may not be the right word, but these things happen whether you are typically alone or if you are living with others. On
Absolutely.
one place I see that show up is in eating. And you mentioned your background with the nutrition and food, people's relationship with food. So often when people live alone, they fall in that trap of like, well, I don't want to just cook for one person. And so they end
Yep.
up, I don't need to tell you, right? So that's the same thing where the conversation you're having with yourself is you have to value your own self enough for your own self, even if you are not living with others.
Yeah, and specific to food, I used to tell my clients all the time, your relationship with food is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. And that can sting depending on what your current relationship is with food right now. Because if you're
Right.
constantly gorging yourself, putting crap into your body, letting emotions, hijack the steering wheel of your decisions and actions, how do you really feel about yourself? And again, through a lens of curiosity, we can have some harsh, vulnerable, open conversations and get to the crux of what's going on instead of fighting it and resisting it, because what you resist persists. We lean into acceptance and action to make changes.
So it sounds like you have a great career. You love your business. You're enjoying your podcast and having, great traction there. I think that a lot of people would say, well, this Paul Salter fellow, he certainly has everything together. His life must be easy and perfect. Is that the case?
No. Oh, no. Challenges are our greatest teachers. One of my mentors, I come back to this all the time. He always told me if I want to expand, I have to expand. And yes, there's redundancies and silliness in that. But what I interpret that as, is expanding into the next level of growth. I have to expand, whether we say physically, spiritually, metaphysically. It's this expansion into or out of our comfort zone into our discomforts, foreign, novel challenges and experiences and emotions. So for me, I think I'm good at putting myself in those situations. They're challenging, they hurt, they suck, to say the least at times. Do so intentionally, knowing what's on the other side of that mountain you've committed to climbing. It's always worth it so long as you're connected to your why and you remain connected every step of the way.
Do you ever feel disappointed in yourself?
I think for a while, I was very harsh and critical of myself for past decisions, mistakes, and something that really opened my eyes, opened my heart, if you will, to another way of seeing it was something one of my own mindset and performance coach told me. She says, and I use this all the time, but she gets all the credit, is many people think that hindsight is 20/20. And in her words, hindsight is a cruel son of a because if you knew what you knew now, you would have done differently back then, but you
Right.
didn't. So you've
Right.
got to forgive yourself, learn the lesson and let go. And for me, it was like she slapped me upside the head. She didn't. It was a virtual call. Don't worry. To really learn, like, oh my gosh, like, of course, yeah, I would have behaved differently if I had data point A, B, and C in this
That's right.
experience. But I didn't. So that has gone a long way in helping me release some of that guilt or lack of forgiveness I experienced holding on to mistakes, resentment, and grudges within myself. And in a way, it's freed me up to be more bold, to make mistakes, to take risks, which is a freeing feeling.
It really is. And it's funny you're referencing your other mentors. One of my coaches, I was going through something similar, being very hanging on to things that I did wrong or didn't do in the right time frame or could have done or should have, filling in the could have, should have, would have, all of that. And one day he just said to me somewhat offhandedly, he said, "You're proving you're human and not a robot. Is that something to be upset about?" Right? And similar to what you said, like getting slapped up the head, for some reason that broke through the noise in my mind. And if I will tell you, at first I was slightly annoyed because it almost felt like he was discounting, what I was, right? Like,
Of course.
that has brought freedom. Again, the similar words, just a freedom. And now I even use that on occasion. I don't allow myself to use it too much because that can become a crutch of like, oh, look at me, proving I'm human, oops, did I hurt your feelings and ruin things? Oops. Not in that manner. with my own self-talk, and it allows you the freedom to stay curious and to stay confident and to actually challenge yourself and to, grow and expand when you can free yourself from that critical self-talk or disappointment or hanging on to a negative emotion around something in the past.
Most people
Even the
grow up with
recent
the
past.
experience, that it's not safe to make a mistake. And that's where
Mhm.
it invites in all the critics, the judgment, the harsh inner self-talk that we keep talking about. And when you can create that sense of safety, the humanness within you, like, freeing. I keep coming back to that too. And it's empowering as well.
Right. It really is. And I think it allows you to see the good things about you, which we all
Yeah.
have gifts and
Yeah.
talents and humors and knowledge and ability and
Mhm.
personality, right? It allows you th- to let those things come to the forefront in a more meaningful way.
Which we all need to spend more time thinking about the
We do,
good things.
yes. 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 So one other question, and I'm going way back to looping back to the beginning of our conversation. So, and I know you said there's a time and a place for affirmations. There's that time for the questions, and the questions
Mhm.
can become the yes no questions can become part of your daily routine, right? So
Mhm.
you could actually, they could coexist. You could have
Mhm.
affirmations you do as you're getting ready for the day. And then you could have a visualization. You could do prayer, meditation, whatever you may have in that moment of feeding your mind and your heart and soul in the morning. And then you could ask yourself the questions as well. I think that I want to look at incorporating that into my morning routine.
And you hit the nail on the head. They all serve a purpose. Some of them you're gonna gravitate towards more than others. Visualization, candidly, in my opinion, should be mandatory for all. It is so powerful.
Mhm.
And that's a whole nother side conversation if we want to go there. But in short, like the affirmations too, like sometimes I reframe them, they're confidence statements.
Yes.
And the more we can step into that, it really embody the confidence that we're speaking, allow our posture, our body language to mimic whatever statement we're making. Again, it's all just getting that energy in motion to be aligned with who we want to become, which paves the road for the aligned action steps we take to be that version of ourselves. And that's just doing it every day. You're just feeding those new neural pathways, making it easier and easier to embody that confidence or whatever set emotional state you're working toward. And that's a very powerful place to operate from.
I agree. So I really think I'm excited about that. I want to reflect on that and add it in. I had another
Yeah.
guest on the podcast, and he has a slightly different way of structuring affirmations where they're just confidence statements. And I had fallen into a new little habit of not putting away my work clothes at the end of the day. And so now, and it's worked a charm. So after I recorded the episode with him, I just started at night saying, I'm the kind of person that puts her clothes away. And what? Now, every night I've been putting away. Now, that was something, and I'll bet you probably have insight into this. For years, I always did. So it was kind of a new
Mhm.
little variant, weird thing. And then holidays came, and then I just got it just sort of developed. I don't even know where it came from. But I like how he did that. He just tells himself there's no measurements, there's no SMART goal, there's no black and white thinking. It's just, you know what? Paul, let me introduce myself. I'm someone that puts their clothes away at the end of the day. Yeah. So it's like this confidence statement of just sort of, yeah, that's what I do. And
It's an
I am
identity
having,
statement.
yes. And I am having
Uh-huh.
fun with that in a couple of different
Yeah.
areas. And I can't wait to add in more of the yes or no questions as I'm preparing for the day. So
Yeah.
I have really appreciated everything you have shared. Is there
Yeah.
any other item that you want to make sure anyone listening to us would hear?
Yes. So if you hopefully have taken notes during this conversation, I encourage you to go back and listen if you have not. A lot of great nuggets from Bridget and myself. The big takeaways I'll leave you with is a quote that I still cannot to this day remember where I read it. I think it's from the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I can't confidently state that, but the quote is this: "The voice of your subconscious mind is silence." And the reason I'm bringing that to the surface of this conversation is we are so distracted by the noise of social media and the fast-paced world we live in today, where there is billions of bits of information readily available at our fingertips in milliseconds. So we don't make time for silence. We fear silence. We fear the being, the nothingness. Yet when we consistently carve out time for silence, to be in solitude, that's when really we go online in terms of connecting with ourselves, getting honest and vulnerable about what's working, what's not, what are we afraid of, what are we not doing we should be doing, what are we doing we shouldn't be doing. So the big takeaway in the action step that I recommend is create a silence and solitude practice, 2 to 5 minutes a day where you just sit silent, alone, and allow your mind to take you to where you need to go, address and uncover what needs to be worked on or have more intention so you can take aligned, effective action steps to be the best version of you.
I think that is really, really important. When you mention that, it makes me think about the practice of grounding, where, going outside, I laid down in the middle of Death Valley and just, did a whole routine. I'm sure you're aware. Start with the top of the head, go all the way. And just allowed my body to connect. And I've done it. I won't bore you with all the places. But what you mentioned, if you can incorporate that into your daily routine, where you disconnect from anything that is technology or other people or sound. I'm going to go so far as say even music, which I'm a music addict, and just give yourself that gift of silence. It is so impactful, I think, and I am not a doctor, but I think it's really impactful on mental health as well.
You ever done a sensory deprivation tank?
I have not, but I think I should.
That's your next step. They're an experience. They are, especially if you live in a very noisy, clouded mind, you're addicted to your phone, which the vast majority of us are, and you go shut off. I mean, I challenge you to start with an hour. If you can get to 2 hours in there, you get out of there a new person.
That is a brilliant idea. All right, fencing and a sensory deprivation tank.
There you go.
I need
You're
to
welcome.
do both of those. So I agree with you, Paul. If you allow the sound of silence into your day more often, it's going to be beneficial.
More flow, more ease, more clarity.
So who are the key clients that you work with? If anyone is listening to us now and they're still in the podcast and they're thinking, I don't know, is that something I should consider? Who would be someone that would be a great candidate to work with you and have that growth and expansion in their life?
Yeah, so I work with driven, high-performing professionals who want to be the best version of themselves and unlock their potential. So the beautiful thing is that allows me to work with individuals of all industries from A to Z. Professional athletes, restaurateurs, real estate agents, investors, brokers, lawyers, everyone in between. But the commonality is someone who wants to achieve their potential, feels like they know what to do, but just can't break through this invisible resistance holding them back. And candidly, you've heard me on this wonderful conversation with Bridget, and this type of work, it's deep, it's uncomfortable. You usually have some type of calling or curiosity to it. And if anything that Bridget and I discuss resonates with you, let's have a conversation.
I think that would be great. Your contact information will be anywhere anyone is listening to this. And I really appreciate you sharing everything that you have. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to incorporating a lot of what you shared with us, even into my own practices. So that has me very excited. By the way, do all of your clients play golf? What if somebody's not a golfer, but they're intrigued by your approach?
Still great client to work with, yes.
That's what I figured. Just throwing that out there in case anyone was thinking. So, Paul, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. If you're listening to this podcast, I hope that you'll return. Paul, I'm sure you and I could find other things to talk about as well. And I'd love to have you back as a guest again to share more insight into especially that power of the hypnosis. I'd love to hear more about that. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening and have a great day.